Okay, so I just wanted to shoot off a quick video about how to narrow down a thesis. This is really applying more to the research paper because I know that was a big pitfall for a lot of us. So I just want to talk a second about how you can narrow down your thesis, and I thought of 5 kind of routes you can take to narrow down your thesis. So the first route is local. So you choose something that's either local to you or the region that you're doing, because instead of that changes it from, instead of being like, for example, the because we did a kind of an ocean, we did a water base, so instead of saying like how are the otters on the west coast, a student would narrow it down to how are otters in Monterey or San Francisco, and you could really narrow it down by like local. And the same thing worked for me, where I did fishing in the Sea of Galilee, where at first I started off as fishing in the Middle East, but that was a lot of water, so I then narrowed it down to fishing in the Sea of Galilee. Another thing you can narrow it down by is with society, so maybe how something is affecting a certain group of people in a certain region rather than a humongous group of people in a very wide region. Because if I were to do, with mine for the Galilee paper, how is fishing affecting the Middle East, I would still be writing it now. So because I narrowed it down to a smaller group, it wasn't so bad. And then another thing you could use is political. So let's say something is affecting like an area of politics. So I guess you could say for our ocean paper a lot about oil drilling. So you could tackle like a specific bill or a specific like ban that's trying to be placed through legislation. Then you could tackle that instead of tackling everything to do with oil drilling. Another way is economic. So you could say how something is affecting the economy in a given location X rather than covering the entire economy. So I actually tied that into my paper a bit about how fishing was affecting the economy in Galilee. So I tied it back with local and economic. So that also is another way to help narrow it down. And then the last way, which is kind of more of the free way to narrow it down, is a personal story. So I personally do not remember even being to the Middle East because when I was very young, but I know from family who lived there that when they used to fish, they tell me stories about how they would fish there. And so I didn't take the personal story route, but I could have by saying that like my family here, like this has affected them, blah blah blah, and went off more that route. But that, once again, the personal story almost takes the local and the society and ties it all into one, but it gives it your own personal spin on it. So those are the 5 ways you can narrow it down. You can really use a blend of all of them just to make it even more clear. And just remember that try to make your thesis and what your research question as narrow as possible, because really you can't have a problem with having too narrow of a focus, but having too wide of a focus is really what's going to sink your boat. So take those into thought and hopefully use them, and good luck!